Recursive community here from Sofia. Let me introduce you our next guest. He is a business development professional who got fascinated by the world of crypto and fintech. Stoev is the head of crypto and trading, Skrill and NETELLER at Paysafe Group, which is one of the biggest IT employers in Bulgaria. In the last 5 years, he gained extensive experience in investing, valuations, analysis, advisory, and solutioning in crypto and fintech. With a background in business analysis and finance, Jordan is constantly trying to improve, learn, and grow. Jordan, welcome to the Recursive podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I would like to start maybe in a more philosophical way, our conversation today. And I was wondering, what were the values that you were raised with that helped you in your professional journey later on?
So I was born in Sofia. I was born and raised here. My parents were, very hardworking people. They weren't rich, but they, did their best to kind of give us a decent start. I have a brother as well. And I think I was brought in values of humbleness, being fair, being open. Integrity is also very important to me as a person even. Not even from a professional perspective only, right? As a person. I think that has really, really helped me grow and just get, the respect of the people that I work with and my team. So.
What kind of school did you finish?
I was in the first English language school here in Sofia. Yeah, that was my high school.
Which is one of the best schools in the country, right?
It is, yeah, it is.
And I guess it created also this basis for your journey then to the US. You actually graduated in the States. What did you learn from your journey?
The main thing is, to be open-minded, to see a different world. When I was 18, when I went there, it was a completely different world. So it opened my eyes to a lot of things. A lot of things were possible. And it's just a very, very it was a lot of studying as well, in terms of actual subjects, but I think that the most valuable thing was just to see the world and to see that everything is possible. And the US is really eye-opening in terms of that.
To widen your perspective.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
Why did you decide to come back? What year was that actually, when you came back?
So that was, I think, 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so 10 years ago, almost.
10 years ago.
A long time. But I just enjoyed, life in Europe better. It was really personal reasons mostly. I just wanted to come back. I was still young, 22, and I came back, and I saw opportunity here as well. Bulgaria was sort of moving ahead as a country. We were sort of, part of the European Union now, so there's plenty of opportunity here as well. So that's why I decided to come back.
So you're one of those optimistic returnees, as we call them.
Yeah, I mean, if I were pessimistic, I wouldn't return. So
I think this is, the key element in decisions like this. I remember I had a similar adventure. I finished school. I decided I'm going to study abroad. Back then, I didn't even think that I'm going to come back. And at some point, this optimism kind of, win me over. And I decided that there is so much you can do in Bulgaria. There are so many niches where I can be I can have my contribution and have impact. So that is what actually kind of, fascinated me. When there are a lot of problems, there are also a lot of market niches.
Yeah.
How did you make the switch from business analysis to crypto and trading?
So, I graduated in finance, so I've always had, the finance world and economics have always been very fascinating to me, right? And I started working at banks initially. That was my career path. Business analysis still at banks, right? So I had to understand the financial sort of world. And, crypto is very connected to that. And I'm also very interested in tech in general, right? So I was very interested in computers as a kid. And my crypto journey started way back in 2011 or 12 when I came back. And it was, I tried to mine Bitcoin on my personal computer at home.
Wow.
which was a complete failure because obviously I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't know you had to participate in pools to be able to mine anything. You couldn't mine by yourself, and the computer was not powerful enough, and so on and so forth. So I just disregarded it, I just dropped it at the time. But it was very interesting from a tech perspective, right? I didn't understand the economics impact and the finance impact at the time. Then in 2016, we decided, so Ethereum was launched in 2015, and in 2016 we found out about it. We again approached it with my friends from a technical perspective. We invested in some mining hardware, started mining it, but this time we were very successful, right? And that's how we sort of went down the rabbit hole, started understanding what it actually is, the economic impact, what it can create, what it can be. And there was no turning back. I mean, it was just fascinating. And then I've been in the space for like almost 5 years now, pretty much full time. So.
The impact of blockchain, especially in the early days, has been seen as very inspirational for all those who are kind of, against established practices in finance. For you as a finance person, I guess this must have been like super exciting. What was your big hope? Maybe it transformed over time and it changed over time, but what was your big hope that crypto will change or make better?
So crypto can be many things. It's not just speculation. It's not just investing even. But initially it started as that. So so Bitcoin, when it was created, the idea was that there was no counterparty risk with it, right? So it's a fully decentralized protocol where you don't need to trust anyone to be able to transact and to be able to have Bitcoin. While in the financial system, and Bitcoin was created as a sort of as a response to the 2008 financial crisis. The traditional financial system is very complex. It's not transparent, and there's always tons of counterparty risk. You don't even know, as a customer, for example, of a bank, you don't even know who sits against you. Like, what are your risks that you're taking for having your money at the bank, right? Because the bank lends them out to retail customers. They lend out to hedge funds. They lend out. I mean, the central banks in itself. They are also a risk vector, right? And they can, manipulate the currency. They can create more currency. They can bail out banks. It's a very complex system with a lot of risks. And Bitcoin does away with almost all of that, right? Bitcoin is a very simple system. It's just one asset on a blockchain, right? It's secured by the most secure network in the world. It cannot be hacked, and it's very simple. It's transparent. You can see the supply of Bitcoin. You can see who has it. You can trace each Bitcoin from the moment it was created and mined to this very day. It's very transparent. It's provably scarce, which is also something just very, very interesting from a digital perspective, right? To have something that is unique and scarce digitally, not physically, right? And it's just a sort of a new financial system, a new, more fair, more open financial system. This was the big hope at the time, and I think to an extent it has managed to deliver to that.
Oh, okay. Do you see it today as an addition to the system that we have, or do you see that it actually has the potential to exchange the established?
So Bitcoin is fairly limited in its abilities. It's very good at some things, but very bad for other things. For example, Bitcoin for payments is not a very good payment method. It's slow. It's fairly expensive. But it is very good as a store of value, right? And it is very good as a store of value because there's no counterparty risk. When you hold Bitcoin, the risk is very limited, right? I mean, price goes up and down, but the asset stays the same. The network stays the same. For example, there's other better methods for payments in crypto, right? There's stable coins. There's more scalable blockchains that can address the payment sort of pain points much better than Bitcoin. So I think Bitcoin is an addition. It cannot replace the payment networks that we have today, like the digital wallets, the cards that we use every day. They're very good, they're very efficient, and they're very cheap for us as customers. For you to pay with your credit card, essentially at a store, it's free, right? So and it's instant. So why change that, right? But what Bitcoin does very well, though, is if you want to preserve your purchasing power, if you want a store of value, if you want pristine collateral, which is very important in the financial world, to have pristine collateral, right? In today's financial world, the pristine collateral is usually, U.S. Treasury bonds or European Central Bank bonds or, Germany bonds, bunds. But they are, again, a lot of counterparty risk, right? You just depend on the country that you hold the investments in, right? Well, Bitcoin is completely different to that. So it's very good as a pristine collateral store of value. But there's other blockchains to address the other pain points.
Okay. It's actually, I've never seen it in this way. Lately, we speak also a lot about Web3. And I think it's becoming more and more this vague term. Can you actually explain that to me, like in simple words? Like, what is it with all this Web3 and crypto projects that we're now seeing transforming the way that we even build businesses and fund businesses and engage with people, with communities? In projects.
So Web3 is it's an idea, right? I wouldn't say that it's materialized yet. It's just an idea. It's an idea that you move away from the control of the big tech corporations, which are the Googles, the Amazons of the world, the Facebooks, which, to be fair, have done very positive things as well. They're not just bad companies that do bad stuff. Sometimes some people hate them, but they do connect us as in a whole different way, right? As technology allows them to. But Web3 is what we define as the ownership economy. So essentially, you own your own data. You are part of the protocol and the actual tech that you use. So in crypto, when you're a user of a blockchain or a user of a protocol, you are an owner of the protocol as well. So while with Google and Facebook, you're just the user, and essentially these companies, monetize your data. That's how they make money, right? While Web3, the idea and the ethos of Web3, it's open, it's permissionless, it's fully transparent, and the users can actually participate even financially and economically in this stuff and the data they produce. And for example, you can have, if you have a decentralized Web3 social network, right? Every user would be, the more he contributes to the network, the more you get rewarded and the more the network will grow. And as the network grows, then network effects come in and kick in, and then the entire sort of pie grows, and we can participate in that, the growth of the pie. We're not just, users of a centralized entity that monetizes our data. So that's the idea of Web3. But it's still I'd say just an idea. There's a lot of projects doing different things in that direction, but I mean, it's a difficult nut to crack, to be honest. I mean, there's so many projects just trying to do stuff, but in the end, they create more friction for the users than value to them. So I wouldn't say it's been successful, but there's a lot of experimentation going on.
Definitely. The world has exploded. The world, of crypto projects has exploded. I think many of us are not even capable of understanding what these projects are all about.
Yes. And we have this, saying in crypto, like if you have to question whether something needs a blockchain, it doesn't. So that's, people try to stick things that are not suitable for blockchains on blockchains because it's trendy and because they can raise more money that way.
That would have been my next question. Somehow, because blockchain has become this buzzword, and now more and more also investors and VC funds are getting the taste of investing in such projects. But sometimes I'm actually totally flabbergasted by the valuations that crypto or blockchain startups are getting just because they have this buzzword. Where do you see this evolving?
So it's in cycles usually. So because of crypto's nature, which is, crypto is sort of driven by network effects, right? So when you have more people joining the network, the value of the network starts growing exponentially, right? And prices as well reflect that. So you have these boom and bust cycles that, last a couple of years. And during those boom cycles, people just flock in, VC funds start investing, and they just start throwing money at the space just for profit, right? For a quick buck. But sometimes, when the sort of the bubble bursts, which inevitably happens, and it's the normal cycle of crypto, there's booms and busts, it's just cyclical. There's a lot of investment for like 2 years, and then the next 2 years there will be very few new projects, very few VCs will enter the space, and valuations will come down significantly. So I think we're again in a cycle, in that part of the cycle where valuations will come down very significantly in the next couple of months and potentially years, until the next cycle, the next growth cycle of these networks and the next applications that come on top of them will be developed.
You mentioned network effects, and we know that building systems that can leverage this network effects has been super challenging. Actually, it's very few companies who may be successfully managed to hack it. I wonder here, being part of a company that is building a payment system, where do you see also the place of Paysafe when it comes to making use of or connecting the different dots in the network effects?
So we're still, first and foremost, we're a payments company, right? We specialize in high risk verticals like crypto, and we're very good at, we specialize in compliance, I'd like to say, because we're very good at that, managing risk.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is just bridge the gap between crypto and the normal fiat world, right? So we're trying to connect, banking, the regular financial services that we have with the crypto world and the crypto services that also, our customers can benefit from. We're working very hard in that direction as well, because there's a whole new financial system that's being built on crypto rails. And a lot of our customers and a lot of people would like to participate in that, but it's very difficult. You hear these things, DeFi and these terms, they don't mean much to a person who's not in crypto, right? They don't understand how it works. So we're working to sort of bridge the gap between the regular world, what normal people have, what normal people use, and bring some of the benefits of the crypto financial services that are available out there. So we're not, trying to create network effects per se for ourselves as a company, but we're trying to sort of bridge the gap between the huge network effects that crypto creates and the normal world that we, transact in every day.
I understand. Where do you see the opportunities for the innovation in crypto going, especially I would like to focus it a bit more on Europe, and maybe even if you can share a bit more about the local communities. Somehow these communities, they tend to stay underground.
Yes.
But we step by step realize that we have a lot of talent and a lot of people who have been playing around with blockchain, who are also interested in crypto. So where do you see this potential going in our region?
So crypto is very global, very region agnostic, right? So, in crypto, there's, like you said, a lot of people that are anonymous in the space, right? And have huge followings. Like, for example, in the crypto space, there's very successful people that have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter that tweet great content, and no one knows who they are, where they are, and what they do in their regular lives, right? But they're very big in crypto. And crypto allows that, right? You don't have to share your identity. You can just participate in the network, right? And if you bring value to the network, the community appreciates it. So there's a lot of people in Bulgaria that are interested in crypto, some of them anonymous, again, not very widely known. I also myself, I don't do a lot of, these sorts of interviews, but there's a lot of talent, I can tell you, a lot of interest, and that we have companies that are actually very well known in the crypto space that are based in Bulgaria and that are, essentially on the world stage as big crypto companies that everybody knows. So we as a company as well, we invest in the space a lot. We are, one of the, I think, the biggest employees, actually IT employees in Bulgaria. And so there's a lot of talent that we have, and there's a lot of talent that we're looking to get on board with us as well. So it's great opportunity, and the fact that you can participate, in Bulgaria, we're in Eastern Europe, right? So we're not in the UK, we're not in Germany, we're not in the US, but we can participate on fair grounds with everybody else because crypto enables that, right? It's a truly global system. It doesn't matter where you are based, what you've done, what you know. It's, if you bring value to the network, you can join it. It's free, it's open, it's permissionless, and you can build stuff on it and participate.
You kind of, build this image of the crypto world being very meritocratic, fair, where, status doesn't really play a role as long as you're contributing in a meaningful way. At the same time, we know that the crypto world is also prone to fraud and, practices which are not very meritocratic. Let's put it like this. You mentioned that Paysafe is pretty much focused on providing compliance and, how did you say that?
So we'd like to see compliance as our competitive strength, right?
Okay.
Yeah. And we are able to serve markets that other companies are not able to because they don't have the compliance expertise and processes and risks and experience that we have. So we can manage, for example, supporting payments for crypto exchanges in a risk manageable way that other companies just cannot. Because there's, like you said, it's a free market. There's a lot of risk, and if you don't have proper controls, you can get into trouble. So that's what we do very well at Paysafe.
Can you give some examples of the troubles that Paysafe helps prevent for its customers?
Yeah, in terms of like merchants, let's say, and merchants, we have thousands of merchants. One of our biggest sort of projects that we're well known for in the space is our partnership with Binance. Binance is the biggest crypto exchange in the world.
Yes.
What we do for them is, for example, we support their entire payment rails in Europe because we're a fully licensed provider, e-money licensed in the UK, in Ireland as well. In the US even, we're a regulated company there. We're a public company, and we can enable, crypto exchanges cannot get the licenses that we have because they don't have the risk controls that we have. So we have very strong, know your customer processes. We have very strong monitoring tools that we can essentially track if illicit funds or, AML, fraud, terrorist financing. We have a tremendous expertise in those areas, and we can manage those funds properly without, making the regulators comfortable that these payments are going and coming from legitimate sources and going to legitimate sources as well.
And to what extent is that actually even possible in the world of cryptocurrencies and the flows that we have been observing? I think one of the biggest, fears that we had lately after the war has started, that crypto will become a way to finance war, to finance, sides of this war that we don't want to get funded, and it's going to be a work around the restrictions that have been put on Russia. I don't want to get into the war topic, but is it actually really possible to manage such risks in the crypto world?
It actually is, and so crypto is not very good for criminal purposes. People, don't seem to grasp that very well because they don't have experience in the space. Crypto is transparent. Like, it's very easy to trace. So you can trace every, for example, every Bitcoin, where it came from, where it went to, and the entire history of the funds, right? So it's very difficult to circumvent sanctions this way because you can essentially, on a couple of steps, because you're trying to obfuscate where the funds are coming from, right? And on every step, you take additional sort of risk when moving these funds, moving them between exchanges. You have to, because you cannot finance war with essentially Bitcoin, you need to turn it into money at some point, right? And this is usually the point where, to fiat currency, I mean, and this is usually the point where you have to kind of essentially provide some sort of a source of income. You have to, and if it's, when you're trying to circumvent sanctions, it's usually huge amounts of money, right? You cannot, and the crypto market cannot support that sort of liquidity without causing huge amounts of sort of traces on the network, you know? When you're moving like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, it's very visible on the network. And there's companies that specialize in investigating these funds, right? So where they came from, the wallets that have interacted with those, what's their risk score, what's their history. And, you know, you don't know, in crypto, you don't know the exact identity of the person that owns the wallet, but you know their entire history and you know all their transactions. You know their counterparties as well. What have they done before? Have they, you know, transferred money from exchanges? Have they interacted with other wallets that are sort of sanctioned or risky or dark web related or so on? So it's just very transparent. It's very traceable. It's not very good for crime. And there's companies that specialize in doing exactly that. We have a partnership with such a company. We use their services. They're called blockchain forensics companies.
Okay.
And they're very good at what they do. They have risk models that are just very, very impressive. Unlike, you know, for example, with cash is still the best way to circumvent any sanctions, right?
Let's not give tips to.
I mean,
but I guess, yeah, because it's not traceable.
Yeah, in the end, you don't know where it's coming from. So,
would you say the traceability on crypto is easier than in the established financial system with, how do you call it, like e-money? I'm not even sure how we call it now today.
So, I'd say so. I mean, it's with e-money, like in Europe, obviously it's all very regulated. And if money is moving within Europe, they're very easy to trace. Like, you know, the correspondent banks, there's all sort of regulation around it. But when you go cross-border, when you go to like transferring money from like, you know, Asia to Europe, I'd say that it's probably, in the end, it could be much, much easier to trace, you know, crypto funds and rails as opposed to where the actual money is coming from. For example, in Asia, right? Because you know the bank that it's coming from, but you don't know the rest of the way. You don't know where it initially originated from. While with crypto, you know the entire history. And, you know, there are cryptocurrencies that are trying to offer more privacy, right? So they obfuscate transactions on purpose so that you can essentially retain your full anonymity, right? And funds cannot be traced. But those are very liquid markets, so you cannot, there's no way that you can, you know, launder any significant amount of money through them, right? It's just really, really small chunks that are just not usable for large amounts of money. And, you know, these companies that I mentioned, the blockchain forensics companies, they do estimate and they do track the entire blockchain history, right? And every year they publish reports, you know, how much of the transactions were essentially illicit or risky or something else. So it's estimated that it's less than 1% actually, 0.15% of crypto transactions are actually related to illicit activities today. It used to be more. You know, crypto started as payment method for essentially for dark web, for you know, illicit markets, for sometimes even cross-country sort of restriction aversion or something like that. But today, it's a very established market, and it's very, very hard to even launder money with crypto.
Wow. Okay. I think a lot of people who are not into these communities and they don't have the knowledge have a totally different idea.
Yes.
Because of the dark web scandal and yeah. Still, I wonder, where do you expect, or what do you expect to see more in the following years? Regulations on crypto by powerful governments? Or would you say that countries will be rather adopting cryptocurrencies as a legal tender?
So I'd say both, right? So when you're regulating something, you are accepting it in a way, right? You're making it formally legal. We live in a sort of a strange time today because, for example, in Europe, cryptocurrencies are fully legal, right? They're not illegal, but at the same time, most of the banks are risk averse. They don't want to interact with crypto. Obviously, most of them don't have proper controls in place. That's why they can't. But, you know, companies like ours have it, but it's still difficult. You know, it's legal, but at the same time, because it's not regulated, banks are afraid to deal with it in size. So I think regulation is definitely going to come. I think also accepting it as legal tender in many countries is also going to come. It has happened in Latin America, and it's happened in other countries as well. It's happened in the US and some states as well. So it's definitely coming. But for me, you know, legal tender doesn't really mean much, right? It's legal even now, right? So it's not like it's changing something massively. But what needs to happen is to have clear regulation where banks and everybody is allowed to participate. Without worrying that, you know, they're taking some sort of risk, or without being sort of harassed by regulators sometimes because of they interact with something that is actually legal.
So managing the risk is actually key.
Absolutely.
Less regulations and okay, I understand. So if you had to, I mean, you're not really in a position, but I still wonder if you have to advise, I don't know, like our government on what would be the right track to take from here, what would it be so that we can make most of it, especially given the fact that obviously we have also a lot of talents who participate in the innovation process around crypto and blockchain?
Yeah, so for us in Bulgaria, we have a very favorable tax system, right? So that's definitely an advantage. But it's also not very clear exactly what the tax rate for crypto should be. Some people believe it's 10%. Some people say it's 20%. Accountants treat it differently sometimes. So that needs to be clarified. And I think a lot of people, if you announce that and if you clarify that, a lot of people will be interested in, you know, obviously coming here and paying taxes here as opposed to paying taxes in France, right? Where it's like ridiculous, like 30-40%. So that's one thing. The other thing, as a country, like on a state level, there's plenty to be done. You know, stable coins are a very efficient way of payment, especially cross-border. They also allow access to the DeFi system in crypto, right? So they're very important, and I think on a country level, they can be accepted, they can be legitimized. So most of these stable coins, so there's a stable coin drama going on in the last couple of days with one algorithmic stable coin. It's very interesting, but I don't want to get into that. But yeah, essentially went from a 30 billion market cap to practically zero at the moment. So it's a big scandal. Anyway, but it's an experiment. It was a financial experiment. There were risks involved. Everybody was clear what they are. But there are stable coins which are fully backed by, for example, you know, US dollars or euros sitting in a bank, right? But they just move on crypto rails. Okay. So that makes them very efficient. They're also centralized, so there's no risk, like they can be frozen, right? If someone thinks that something illicit is going on, they can be frozen. So, you know, the criminal cannot move them. So they're very safe from that perspective. And from a payment perspective, they're very good. It's, you know, just cross-border payments, very easy, very simple, very quick. And also, I think, you know, Bitcoin as a reserve asset is still underappreciated. Yes, it is very volatile in fiat terms, but still it is the asset with the least counterparty risk that is available and known to man. Like traditionally, gold is this asset, but gold is much, you know, harder to trade. It doesn't move on, you know, electronic rails. But I mean, that's underappreciated. And I think many countries can take advantage of that as well. And it's usually small countries that have unstable financial systems. It's not, you know, we are in the European Union, so we need to to follow what the EU decides to do. We cannot just say we want to buy some Bitcoin. It doesn't work like that. So
actually, there was this big fairy tale that the Bulgarian government holds this huge amounts of Bitcoin. I don't know if that's true, but
as far as I know, it's not. I know they seized a lot of Bitcoin. As far as I know, they auctioned it off years ago to some investment funds. Some of them in the Middle East. I think there were some U.S. ones as well, but I don't think we as a country hold any Bitcoin at the moment.
Okay, unfortunately. Okay, but creating more favorable tax conditions for crypto might be of value. Maybe even, I don't know, is it possible to create an offshore zone for crypto in a country?
It is. So, for example, Portugal, right? If you live in Portugal long term, and you're not a professional trader, right, of cryptocurrencies that trades on a daily basis, just an investor, you can pay 0% tax on cryptocurrency gains, right? Which is pretty interesting. In Germany, it used to be the case that if you hold your crypto for more than a year, you don't have to pay tax. This has changed now, I believe, though. Because crypto is like seen as these crypto kids, they make so much money, they pay no taxes, right? While that's not exactly the case, and the governments want to tax it as much as possible, because people see this as unfair gains. But yeah, I think in Bulgaria, I think clarifying the exact taxation system for crypto, even if it's 10%, if it's not zero, it'll I think be a massive advantage for us.
So if you are interested in learning more about the crypto world and understanding the basics, understanding the projects that they are, maybe not necessarily be part of some kind of a developer community, what would be the best way for someone who is, let's say, based in Sofia or here in our region? You mentioned that it's a very global community, it's region agnostic. Who are the people that you should follow on Twitter? What are the things that you have to learn? Is there a course that you would actually recommend? How did you start it?
So I started, from purely tech standpoint. Again, started by mining. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as an easy way in. It's actually very complex, very difficult. But I would say, people usually start by buying some cryptocurrency, at a platform, and just holding it. I think Twitter is where most of the crypto action is. You need to be, following the Twitter, sort of the big names, the big crypto names in Twitter. They provide very interesting insight. They also, and it's very important to not use that as, financial or trading advice, right? This is just content for learning. That's it. But it's a very active crypto community on Twitter. And you can learn tons of things there. You can discover new projects. You can hear what's going on. You can understand some of the things that are very hard to understand. For example, this algorithmic stablecoin fiasco that's happening the last couple of days. If you're not on Twitter, you wouldn't even understand what's going on. Like it's very complex behind the scenes. And so for a newbie, I would suggest learn by doing, right? Buy some crypto, small amounts, obviously, money that you can afford to lose. Try make some transactions, check out what's available, learn some on Twitter. There's plenty of resources on the internet as well. I mean, you don't have to be a developer if you're not interested in that side of the equation. You can just, there's tons of information everywhere. That's the beauty of the technology that we have today. Like it's all available, right? You can learn, you can use, it's open, it's free. So there's plenty of ways. But yeah, learn by doing, I'd say.
I guess you are probably in a way an ambassador within your organization, within Paysafe. You have how many employees now in Bulgaria? I think more than 2,000. No, I'm sorry, 1,000.
More than 1,000.
More than 1,000.
Yes.
You recently opened also an office in Varna where you continue hiring. For those who are part of the company and would like to learn from you, from crypto? How do you do that? Do you have like internal kind of structures where you can be buddies to yourself, or you can be mentoring each other?
So we have, it's difficult because we're a big company, right?
Yes.
And a lot of the company is in financial services, so traditional financial services. And they don't necessarily have an interest in cryptocurrency, but a lot of the people do, have interest in cryptocurrency. So, and now that we've made a mission in the company to invest in crypto, and that, that's sort of the next frontier of growth that we see for us as a company, a lot of people were interested, and we try to educate them, try to, have workshops with them, go even in person to talk to them, show them stuff, teach them, try to get them involved, because in crypto, what happens is if you're a regular user, you get involved in the community, right? And that becomes a sort of a dynamic that sort of attaches you to this, and you sort of become part of it, And it's very important because if you're just sitting on the outside and you don't follow people, you're not interested in this stuff, you can, when the market quiets down, people lose interest and they just, disregard it until the next bull run starts, right? So these boom and bust cycles are very sort of noticeable in crypto. And the sort of market sentiment plays a big role. So we need to keep people engaged. We need to make it interesting for them. Try to explain what's cool about it. Why is it so exciting, right? Have these conversations. Try to even explain to them the economic principles that it's built upon, why it is so big, right? Because most people that are outside, they don't understand, what is this all about? Why is it so big? Why is it, what is this, like, why are people buying this stuff? It's just digital magic money, like magic internet money. This is what we call it sometimes.
Magic internet money, I love it.
Yes. So, it's very difficult because we as people, we're used to, the physical world. We used to touch, feel something, not used to something digital that we can own. Yeah, it's very intangible. It's all digital, but it can also, it has a lot of benefits. The fact that it's digital, it's very easy to transfer. Very liquid, so on and so forth.
What excites you most in your role at Paysafe?
So I have a very good team that I work with. And the thing that the reason that I'm with Paysafe is crypto, right? Because Paysafe does cool things. That's why I work at Paysafe, right? If Paysafe weren't doing anything in crypto, I would probably not work at Paysafe. So Paysafe does very cool things as a company. It's a great sort of environment to work in as well. I mean, the company does take care of the people very well. Like, and I don't mean like only financially. I mean like it's a good environment to work in. And the people there are just amazing. The product people, IT people, just a pleasure to be there. Honestly.
How many people are now currently in this crypto department in your team?
In my team, we are on the product side and business development side, it's like 7 or 8 people. On the dev side, it's like 20 or 30 people as well.
Okay. And this is expected to grow and to develop even more.
Yeah.
Do you see Paysafe also somehow being one of the major stakeholders, I would say, in the tech ecosystem, collaborating in some way with startups or with, crypto projects which are in the region? Do you see that going there as well?
Yes, we're exploring that. I'd say it is a bit difficult because, again, we're a public company and we're not, some sort of venture fund that we can just invest in startups, right?
No.
But yeah, we're definitely exploring ways to do that. And I hope that, we can do that. It's very interesting, but it's also a difficult time in the industry, right? So when you invest as a sort of venture in a company, you need to sort of justify that investment. And right now, crypto is not the hot market it used to be a year ago. So the sentiment is not sort of as good as it used to be. But longer term, we're definitely exploring that as well, yeah.
I would love to see that. I think, cannot building bridges within the ecosystem is very, very important.
Yes.
And I see when it comes to the crypto world and to the blockchain communities, not world, communities which are here, this is not happening enough yet because it's fairly new type of community, I would say. Do you participate in these communities proactively? Like, do you meet each other? Do you have like meetups, or how do you know the people?
Yeah, so crypto is like, the assets, the cryptocurrency, they're digital. Crypto is very digital, right? So meeting in person is not, the sort of the best way to grow your crypto network and to participate. Usually we hang in Discord servers and Telegram channels, on Twitter, stuff like that. So it's not usually, in person.
Yes.
Most of the people I interact with, like from the crypto space, I haven't met in person, to be fair. But there's many ways you can build trust in the community as well. So I wouldn't say like, I personally don't go to like many meetups. I'd go to conferences sometimes, but it's mostly from sort of business sort of perspective, not really my personal sort of crypto interactions. But it's, the crypto conferences are a lot of fun, especially in bull markets. It's pretty.
I guess fun. Very passionate discussions everywhere.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy, and so many people. It's so much excitement. I mean, it's very positive, I'd say.
But I find curious, all these culture codes that you have. Like, well, we don't really meet in person. We're hanging in Discord servers or on Telegram, and we don't do that. And we actually don't want to have. This attention on us from, let's say, media like ours, or we prefer to stay anonymous, a bit introverted. What else can you say about the culture codes in the crypto community?
So it's very interesting that also, crypto, like we see it as, externally we always say the crypto community, but it's actually, crypto is very tribal, right? So you have these separate communities that are constantly fighting each other and trying to, diss each other. And it's very exciting. It's cool stuff. And the power of memes in the crypto space is tremendous, right? So, and I mean in modern culture, even not crypto necessarily, but crypto is very mimetic, so to speak. So that on Twitter, it's just so interesting to just follow the different battles between the different tribes, because some protocols and some tokens they have designed a token and a product to fulfill a nation. There's like, because crypto is open source, it's permissionless, so anyone can just copy something and then deploy it and create a new token on another blockchain or even the same blockchain, right? And create a different community, right? And fork the previous community. And then these communities are fighting, and it's very interesting. Like it's awesome. And obviously the stronger community wins in the end. That's usually, right? But it's a very sort of democratic system, right? Everybody can do what they want. Everybody can copy the code. Everybody can create an application. Everyone can create a community. So it's very interesting. And it's just not one community. It's like hundreds of tribes of communities that sometimes, work with each other, but sometimes they fight.
Is there a no-go in the, let's say, in the crypto community, stuff that you don't do because it will get judged? I mean, also Elon Musk has been criticized a lot for.
Yes, he has. Elon is a very interesting person. Like he does this very much for fun, I think, and people trade based on that and make or lose a lot of money. It's ridiculous. And I think, if in honest criticism to him, I'd say that he needs to be more considerate into what he's saying, because people are taking it for granted, that they're trying to trade it, and a lot of people have lost a lot of money because of that. And I that's not to say, it's a free market. It should be a free market, I believe. That's one of the last free markets that we have in the finance world is crypto, because everything else is managed or, bailed out, or, there's no backstops in crypto, right? Crypto is free. Anyone can do anything. And so should, social media as well. That's also very important. We've seen the cancel culture is something that's very big in social media the last couple of years. For example, Donald Trump got canceled from Twitter, right? He got deplatformed.
Yeah.
Other people got deplatformed as well. And I'm not, criticizing necessarily Twitter that they're doing that. I mean, maybe they have their reasons, but I believe that should not be the case, right? Even everyone should be able to share even if it's bad, even if it's not true, even like people should be allowed to say what they want to say. They should not be deplatformed. And in crypto as well, like a no-go in crypto, usually from the hardcore crypto communities, is that cancel culture where you should not cancel other people, right? And there's all sorts of tribes that try to cancel other tribes or other blockchains or hate on them, and it's just never ages well. Usually, in the end, the ones that cancel get, discredited. So I wouldn't say there's a no-go in Twitter, but I would say that, it's a free market. Everyone tweets what they want, and that creates a very interesting dynamic. Some people get more followers, others lose.
Well, social media is under a lot of scrutiny lately, also because we see what kind of influence it has on our democracy, especially when you use it to spread propaganda to maybe even less educated citizens. So I do see it as an amplifier of problems that we do have in our society. And from the perspective of someone who is doing media, who studied media, I'm thinking before that, being, able to voice out a position, to voice out content has been privileged to certain people, to journalists, politicians, to all those. Now with the internet and also with social media, everyone becomes medium. But journalists and also politicians, they were accountable by a code of conduct that we have. And if we democratize this privilege to everyone, what does it happen? I have no clear answer. I was just thinking about when I was listening to that everyone should be allowed to speak out and to have their free speech, because these are the rules. These are the rules in crypto, and it also functions in this way. At the same time, what strikes me quite often is that people who really understand crypto, they're usually very well educated. So they're very curious, they read a lot, and they have good values. That's my first. I'm not speaking about the crypto people who are just trading and doing it for the speculation. They have to be well informed.
Yes, absolutely. And that's how, that's how advantage is built in the crypto space. Alpha, what, called in investment world. You have to dig in, you have to research, and you have to research more than the others, right? It's a free market. Whoever does the most research makes the best decisions, so he succeeds. It's a free market, and it's great, and we love it for that. I mean, and in terms of the media, there are no right answers here, right? Yeah. So we don't know. But I also think that it's very dangerous if we, for example, try to manage, messages and try to censor people. It could get it's very hard to do. Like, I do not envy the people at Twitter and Facebook that have to make these decisions, right? Honestly, this is very hard to do. And I'm not saying they're making bad or good decisions, but it's just how to make a decision like that. Cancel someone. I don't know. Maybe it's a good decision, maybe not. It's difficult, definitely.
It's today's version of playing God, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. And
the platform someone from social media. It's amazing how times have changed. What are your ways and your tips and tricks for staying at the top of your game, to be ahead in the research, to be more informed than others, especially in your position when this is part of your professional capacity as well?
So part of this is actually to realize that you can never be exactly at the top of your game.
Okay.
So that, and sort of that realization and that humbleness allows you to kind of strive for it, right? Because people that, think they're on top of their game, they don't usually, last there very long. So you have to be ambitious, you have to stay curious, and you have to be humble enough and flexible enough to understand that sometimes you can also make a mistake. Admit it and move on, right? Mm-hmm. That's very important in investing. I think in my professional career as well, and in crypto as well, right? Sometimes you make mistakes, you misjudge something, move on, right? Accept it, be flexible, right? Because the world we live in, and in crypto specifically, there's so many things going on, so much innovation. There's no way to stay on top of everything. Mm-hmm. But you need to strive to know as much as possible, and you need to be, again, flexible enough to understand when you're wrong, so that you can switch your strategy. Or
do you nurture this principle also within your team at Paysafe, that, okay, mistakes happen, especially in this export field where we are at, we learn from that and then we move on?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. I think, as a product company, that's very important, because in traditional project companies, you have a client that's telling you what to do. In a product company, you try to listen to your clients, you research your clients, you research markets, and you make a decision what you want to do. And sometimes it's not the right decision. Sometimes you have to try it. I mean, you have to try, fail, and move on. Mm-hmm. The most important thing, obviously, and that's not only in Paysafe or work, in life, is just to make sure you learn from the mistakes, right? Mm. So that's the most important. Do not repeat your mistakes, but making mistakes, embracing failure is very important. And I wouldn't have, succeeded in crypto at all, or my professional life, if I didn't embrace that principle, because I've made a lot of mistakes.
What would you say is your biggest failure, or let's say probably also the situation where you learned most from?
I wouldn't say it's like anything big specifically. Every day I make mistakes, honestly. I try to learn from them. That I mean, in crypto, like my biggest, it's not, I don't see it as a mistake, but for example, when I started, looking into Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin in 2011, I just disregarded it, at the time, which is, if I hadn't, that would have been a huge, huge success for me. But I did. But also maybe it was, for the better, because at the time it was only Bitcoin, right? Today, Ethereum came along later on, a couple of years later. So, and Ethereum is like sort of a completely different beast to Bitcoin. People try to compare them, they're completely different. They try to solve different issues. So, and there's this, like I mentioned, there's this bubble in crypto tribalism. There's, the BTC maxis, where if you're a BTC maxi, you essentially see only Bitcoin as worthwhile, right? So if I had gotten Bitcoin in 2011, maybe I would have missed the rest of the crypto space when it came along in 2015, 16, and so on. So, I mean, you never know, but yeah, I mean, I make mistakes every day and try to learn from them. That's what I can say.
Do you identify yourself with a certain tribe? What tribe are you part of?
Mostly Ethereum, yes.
Okay.
But I'm definitely not a maxi, right? So a maxi is a maximalist, right? So I do explore other blockchains. I invest in other blockchains. So I mean, it's just Ethereum is probably the most robust smart contract blockchain that allows for a lot of things to be built on top of it, but is also fairly decentralized, and it's dependable. You can build stuff on it, it works, and it never stops. So I mean, it's obviously it has some risks, it has some disadvantages as well. It's very expensive to transact sometimes. There are other risks, there's upgrades to the network coming in, and upgrading a blockchain network is something that's just from an outsider's view is completely underappreciated how difficult it is, right? Because these are systems of thousands of computers around the world that need to be coordinated to run a software upgrade. There's all sorts of risks associated with that. It takes years to coordinate and upgrade, to properly test it, and it's just very difficult. But yeah, I don't necessarily associate myself with a certain tribe, but if I have to, it would be Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. I have another question that just popped into my mind, but I'm curious what you're going to say. It's more, again, a philosophical question. Having your background in finance, working for a fintech company, I mean, you're like a finance person through and through. What challenge in the finance industry would you hope to see solved by crypto?
I think the major challenge in the finance industry is that it's intransparent. I think and it's closed off around the edges. It's difficult to get in. So let's start with the transparency issue,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think the financial crisis in 2008, which essentially gave birth to Bitcoin, right? No one knew what was happening, right? People were completely oblivious as to what was happening. It's so convoluted, so complex that, I mean, today, even, the Federal Reserve of the United States, they admit they don't know how many dollars are in circulation around the world because they don't issue them, right? Private banks actually issue money. It's not the central bank that issues money. The central bank just controls interest rates, and even only short term at that. But what blockchain can do is bring transparency, right? There's clarity. What's the supply of each and every asset? Who holds it? What has happened in its past? It's very transparent and it's open, right? It's inclusive. For example, today, if you don't have access to dollars, like you live in Africa or Latin America, it's challenge, right? It's your currency, your local currency is depreciating. You have tons of inflation, and people just scramble to get US dollars because that's the world currency, and that's And crypto is inclusive, right? Through technology, you can have access to these networks, and you can use them on a daily basis. Essentially solving the problem of those local currencies that are constantly depreciating, and the fact that you don't have access to the U.S. banking system to get, that dependable currency that you can use. So I think those are the two things, transparency and the inclusiveness that crypto can help solve. And because crypto is permissionless, it's open, right? People build stuff on top of it that we don't know today what they're going to build tomorrow. I think there's other things as well. I mean, it enables a ton of other opportunities for gaming, for example, for artists as well around the world. They can, today, if you're an artist in Africa, you can sell an NFT to someone in the US, right? And get money for it, which is, something that you couldn't think of doing, 10 years ago. The art world in general is very traditional. Art investing, in certain paintings or statues was exclusively reserved for rich people that had access to that sort of asset to invest. But crypto can help with that as well. It can democratize that in different ways. So there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of good that can come out of it. Obviously, there will be challenges along the way. A lot of fraud. It's like I said, free market. A lot of fraud, a lot of experimentation that's going to fail, and we need to embrace that.
If those who are currently watching us still want to be part of your team at Paysafe, where you help prevent this fraud, because I think this is a very critical aspect if you want to include more people in this system, and for it to be really fair and for it to have a real impact, we need to include more people in the system.
Yes.
And protecting fraud in a way will be essential for all those of us who have this maybe a bit negative image now of crypto, especially with the current events. So if someone wants to be part of your team and join your mission, what would be the best way?
So there's a number of ways. Because we have development teams, we have product teams, we have compliance teams, we have marketing teams. So if you want to be a developer that will be working in a cool team, cool company that does invest in crypto, you can obviously join and apply for a developer position at Paysafe. There's plenty of them open, right? From a product perspective, we have a very good trainee program that we run almost every year, right? There are crypto trainees that will be, hired in the coming months as well. So that's one way to get into a crypto product role, which is something that a lot of people want to get into. But it's difficult, I understand. A product role by itself is challenging enough, right? It's sort of a new thing in Bulgaria, right? And crypto and product combined makes it even more challenging, right? But it's also very interesting. And I'd say, like, if I were someone, graduating from university, that's what I would do, like, because it will allow me to learn the crypto space, but in a sort of a safe environment of a company that I can also learn product and, sort of safely grow my knowledge and my expertise in the space. And in terms of, like, marketing is also very important in crypto, especially the social element, right?
Okay.
And from that perspective, obviously, we have marketing people. We're going to hire more of them. They're not based in Bulgaria at the moment, but there could be some opportunity there as well.
I guess this is also a skill that marketing people would like, understanding crypto. Because I think it's easier to understand crypto when you have a finance background or when you have a tech background. But coming from marketing, it's a bit, for me, it's difficult. I also decided I'm going to educate myself in this field because I find it very exciting how we start building new types of organizations around it. And I must say it's very difficult. I mean, I had to really start with this basics, like what is currency? Going back in the old days, like what are the principles? Because all the terms that people are using, they're so cryptic. In the beginning, I was like, what does this mean? Like, what is staking? Yeah, why is it good? Why wouldn't you say you just hold it? Why do you have to say that you stake it? Why do you have to say that you mine it? And then so on. So you have this special code words, and I guess for marketing people, it's also very difficult to get access to that. Okay.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a very different marketing environment to what traditional marketing is, right? It's very quick paced. It's very social.
Okay.
And it's also, like, for a company like ours, there are some challenges in terms of what we can say as a company, right, related to crypto, because regulators, monitor this very, very closely, right? So from a marketing perspective, first of all, you have to be, like you said, acquaint yourself with the terms. You try to be as quickly reactive as possible on social media, but also try to manage the regulations and the restrictions that are coming from a regulator. So it is definitely a very challenging role, I'd say.
I also see that. Jordan, thank you for this conversation. It's been like a short excursion into another world. Definitely not the conversation that I'm usually used to. Because in a way, I started understanding the principles around startups, but we're now talking about a totally different thing. Which for many of us has been still very closed, and I hope that we will see it opening in the following years. I'm very happy that there are companies also like Paysafe who are a bit ahead of others and embrace this trend. I wouldn't call it trend. I mean, how would you call it? Embrace these opportunities that crypto are actually opening for businesses, for organizations. And also for payments. Yes.
I'd say it's like, if I have to classify it as one thing, it's like culture. And culture and finance combined, it's just something that we've never seen before, something that can create tremendous opportunity. And I think, investing in learning into that space is going to pay off very, very, very well for people that are passionate and want to learn.
Thank you for putting it like this. It's very well put. You're done. Thank you for being our guest here at the Recursive podcast. We will track what you're going to do in the next years. I hope that your team will be growing also with well-informed and well-educated people. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
In the next episode of the Recursive podcast, we welcome Athena Purinadova, the co-founder of the HR tech startup Owiwi.
Okay. A real thing for me, prioritization. I think it's the most difficult part because until very recently, I didn't know how to set boundaries. Mm-hmm. So I was saying yes. And I was saying yes by overestimating my powers and the things that I can do. And by the end of the day, I realized that by saying yes and giving my energy to everything, by the end of the day, I didn't have much energy for the things that I really enjoy and are like doing. So I was being in a constant loop of being burnt out, then outside of a burnout, and then again heading to the next burnout. So when I realized that this is very unhealthy, I took some steps to, make it better and understand that it cannot work if you don't have a clear mind and if you don't clear up your pace, and that it's not a thing working 14 hours per day. It may be, this startup culture and thing, hustling all the time, but no.
And if you're just as passionate about innovation as we are, hit subscribe for the Recursive podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're everywhere.